All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. I'm coming to you live from a city on the edge. We have Game 7 of the World Series, and the Blue Jays have made it all the way. By the time this comes out, you'll know if they have won or lost to the LA Dodgers. But I feel like it is my obligate duty as a Torontonian to remind you, fuck the Dodgers, go Blue Jays, and I hope they win tonight. Although Libra can't be here to join us, he's taking the week off. I know he's cheering for the Jays too, so we're very excited. And another way that you can also cheer for the Jays is to give money to Torontonians. So you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. Every cent that goes towards us goes in part towards cheering for the Blue Jays because they have a much better logo and they have a furry mascot. Like, what more do you need out of a sports team? I think he can get it. But anyways, enough about the Blue Jays and baseball. I'm really excited because we have a very exciting episode today. We have two guests who are going to be joining me to chat a little bit about TTRPGs and some other fun topics. So Duhad and RunRabbitBounce, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Sure thing. Well, coming from the land that the Blue Jays murdered, our poor Mariners.
How dare! How dare!
I'm Duhad,
Sorry.
Also known as April. I am a writer, transformation furry writer. And I've been in this community for a very long time. Got my start working on games like The Exiles of Aphrodisia, Transformation Tycoon, and am now a general writer and TTRPG designer.
And hi, I'm Bounce, RunRabbitBounce on Fur Affinity, GobbleBounce, Bounce Artwork. I'm all over the place and didn't bother to standardize my usernames. I'm an artist, digital artist mostly. I've been in the furry community and the TF community since probably about 2008. But yeah, do some art for TTRPGs, do like comics and commissions and all that good stuff.
Hell yeah. No, I'm really excited to have you both on and to chat about some of your projects, which interestingly enough has links to other previous episodes of this podcast. You know, it's all a big wonderful network. But before we get into that, I did want to ask how you both found the TF community and what really drew you into towards like creating within the space.
Bounce, I led off before. Why don't you take this one to start with?
Oh boy. I mean, I've been unhealthily obsessed with transformation for a very long time. Like when I saw the Sword in the Stone as a kid, I was like cooked. But yeah, but I think again, I think I discovered like transfer somewhere around the time that I got on like FA and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had been on DeviantArt before that, and like I think I just kind of found, golly, I can't even remember. I was trying to find them earlier today, the artist that I initially found, but I can't remember their username.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of people turning into kind of weirdly muscled rabbits and stuff. But yeah, from there I found transfer and got like really into a few artists like Enken and Nojo. And then at some point it's just like, well, I can learn how to draw. I can do this myself. There's a place I can post my own stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how I started, and I've been sort of obsessed ever since. So.
Yeah, I had a fairly similar origin story. God, it's embarrassing, but probably the place I first really discovered transformation was in a Simpsons parody comic of cat people.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so like there's at least like 3 or 4 people in the audience who are just like, oh my god, wait, that one? Oh no. Yeah, and another early infamous transformation awakener that I'm sure some people will recognize is Bone Chiller's Little Pet Shop of Horrors, where a girl trying to get a pet dog ends up as the pet dog of her bully.
Oh no.
And
whatever will we do?
Be very normal about it.
Oh, absolutely.
From there, I ended up similarly finding transfer, and I ended up finding this was early 2000s. I discovered Naga's Den and Arania, and From there, I sort of mostly followed the TG gender transformation pathway as for a very long time, kind of trying to avoid the more furry side of the fandom until eventually getting sucked in as inevitably happens. And kind of taking a weird route. I ended up writing for a fan-run game called Transformania Time, run by a person named Judu, and after working with them on that game for a while, like I said, got sucked into writing for The Exiles of Aphrodisia as the lead writer, then Transformation Tycoon, and from there, after kind of professionally becoming a TF writer, I just sort of ended up accidentally segueing into becoming a furry TF writer with various artists, and from there just, found my niche and stuck to it.
Hell yeah. And I know you two have worked together before. How did you end up meeting each other?
That's a funny story. So PayPal tells people your address when you invoice them. So we realized we lived really close to each other. It's like, let's meet up, let's hang out. After Duhad had commissioned me once, and then we wound up becoming friends, and invited me to a playtest of Island of Dr. Moreau. So,
hell yeah!
I met Duck through To Change, and after doing some work on that, it turns out he was a fan of my work, so we ended up hitting it off, and he eventually was like, "Oh, I want to get more people. I want to try out this IODM thing." So. Yeah. Bounce, who I'd become very close to at the time, was interested in trying out TFRPGs, so we all ended up in a big playtest together with I Feel Odd, the co-creator of We Live Forever, which we'll be getting onto a little bit later. And we ended up just sort of having a whole little weird group forming around this playtest of the Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, the Island of Dr. Moreau book really turned out fantastically. I have a copy sitting on my shelf, and I imagine that getting to play test that was a lot of fun, particularly given you got to give a lot of interesting feedback on it.
We probably changed a number of things that were in that original version of the book, because things changed, and I think a number of them were because of the things that we did.
Yeah, I don't think we were playing that game right, but yeah, it was a really fantastic experience. I mean, I'd never done anything beyond D&D. By that point, so getting to do things that were really themed around just interpersonal relationships between characters and transformation, which made it something really special. Plus, I met a lot of cool people through it, which was awesome. So
hell yeah. And I have to ask one question more before I get into some of the projects you both have directly worked on. Did the Tarot Commission stem out of To Change in any way? Because I know that April, you commissioned Bounce for a tarot
Yeah,
selection.
so I hope this isn't a little too personal, but at the time, Bounce was having a little bit of a money problem, and there was I was getting really into To Change and IODM.
Yeah.
We'd already sort of talked a lot about tarot commission thing, and because of Bounce having a little bit of a rough time, I was like, "Oh, this is perfect. This lines up. I want to help you with your situation, and I also want a bunch of tarot cards." Bounce was already a tarot reader.
Yeah,
she already did tarot as she has so many decks.
I'm a little bit of a collector. Yeah.
So I was like, "Hey, let's do that. Let's make this big collection." And I was. She did an incredible job. I don't want to plug too early, but if you look up the art she did, it is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always I've been a huge nerd about tarot for years, decades, and it was one of the big appeals, honestly, about Island of Dr. Moreau. It was just oh, cool! It uses tarot cards as the playing pieces to determine the success or failure. That's sweet. So yeah, when like Duhad said, I was I needed the business, and it was I'd always kind of wanted to try my hand at making at least part of a tarot deck, so that was really fun, really good time.
No, that's awesome. No, I I really liked how they turned out, and so I wanted to find a way to sneak in that question because I figured there was a way to.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I guess then, one of the things I wanted to get into a little bit was some of the projects that you both have worked on. And I know that April, you've done a lot of writing. Bounce, you do a lot of art. And many of the projects you've worked on actually link back to some of the projects we've talked about in prior episodes. So I was wondering, maybe, Bounce, if you wanted to share a little bit about some of the work you did with We Live Forever, as well as anything you'd like to share about some of the art you did for the Inhuman Resources game.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of at the end of the Island of Dr. Moreau playtest, I Feel Odd, who was one of the other players in that, wanted to... We had like a good group, and we wanted to, do a playtest of that, which turned out to be an incredible time. I have nothing but good things to say about Island of Dr. Moreau. Or not Island of Dr. Moreau. I do have good things to say about that, but We Live Forever and We Love to Live is just objectively, very subjectively, probably my favorite TTRPG I've had a chance to participate in thus far. And yeah, I got super inspired as we were doing the playtest campaign, and I drew a lot of art, especially of my character Pepper, who I love her. She's my favorite.
Hell yeah.
Turned into a giant livestock dragon by the end of things. It was great.
See that big bunny with the eye patch? That's that's Bounce.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. And I think kind of as a result of our work in that, my wife actually, Softy Hellhound Dummy Thick Oni, it wound up joining into the campaign, and through that, I Feel Odd and Softy, became friends, and then they started working together on Inhuman Resources, which was great, and they needed art assets, and hey, I'm right here, especially because it's a transformation thing. So yeah, that has been a whole hoot. I wound up drawing a lot more humans for that than I generally have, which has been great. Honestly, it made me learn. But it also it's been really fun because with that specifically, it's very kind of industrial, sci-fi, Black Mesa meets Abiotic Factor kind of thing, but it's horny in TF.
Of course.
Yeah. So I really was kind of encouraged to play around with different art styles, kind of stuff that you might see in a corporate training manuals, for example, or blueprints for mechanical enemies, and specifically with a lot of the avian specimen, and then the skunk drone. Got to do those as snaps from a camera where it's all kind of blurred and in the middle of this horrible half transformed bird creature running away, or through a security camera, which was really fun. And it also let me get a lot more gross than I generally have in the past, which I want to get grosser. I want to get worse.
Well, I want to pick on that. So what is the draw towards getting grosser and worse on that perspective?
Okay, so I feel like a lot of my art, I feel like my base art style is very cutesy, kind of cartoony, and it still is, and I like that, but I felt a little stuck. I like horror, I really like horror, and body horror and stuff especially, but I haven't been able to capture it the way that I wanted to, and I also, my audience, I don't think is super into that. So it was just a fun excuse to kind of break out of my mold and really force myself to try and do these things that I've always struggled with, and I'd say in a few instances I think I succeeded. It's but yeah, I don't know. TF is weird, and I like when it's weird, and I want to get weirder with it.
Nice. No, that makes sense to me. I know that some of the work that you've done as well, April, touches on We Live Forever. In particular, I know that you worked on a bit of an expansion, I believe.
Yes,
for it?
I in response to the exact same playtest game that got Bounce and I Feel Odd and Softy to get working on the game Inhuman Resources. I spun off because of how inspired I was by the game, but also at the time, especially. It felt like going through it was like this great experience, but we in the course of this campaign had gone through every layer, kind of met every one of the pact makers who were kind of the big NPCs. We'd had a group of 4 players with all 4 playbooks, like the 4 classes and stuff, and I was like, this is great, but I worry that like we're basically done when we reach the end of this, and I love this game so much, I want there to be more, so I began writing down ideas for additional playbooks, and that turned into making alternatives to all the playbooks and making alternatives to all the zones and all the pact makers. And basically, by the end, I realized I'd essentially written just a second copy of the game. So I ended up turning it into its own standalone thing. Well, not standalone. It's still very much a thing you need to buy the actual game to play, because I don't want to take sales away from my friends. But I created this game, We Live Forever and We Love to Live, Love the Sinner and the Sin. And it's just sort of if you like We Live, have more, have so much more. And I kind of also was inspired by, because, We Live and a lot of games that I Feel Odd and Darling Demon Eclipse, and by extension now Bounce and Softy have worked on, are all very weird and out there and kind of get out of your comfort zone. And I wanted to do something like that. I wanted to, as someone who used to write horror before she got into transformation as much, I wanted to kind of tap back into that a little bit, but I'm less of a gross and grody kind of horror fan, so this was kind of more uncomfortable, psychological kind of horror. Like, I kind of want to lean into the idea of, like, grossness in the moral sense rather than the physical sense.
Okay, that's really interesting to me, because, I mean, obviously, we have folks who are very much into the body horror angle, the grossness and such. I think when it comes to transformation works that lean towards horror, it's less common to see them where they focus more on, like, kind of not so much even just the mental aspect, but like the more cerebral sense. And so I'm curious what it is about transformation in particular that you find then is a really useful vehicle to play with those kind of horror themes.
So some of it is kind of a thematic thing, a little bit of the the mind reflecting the body reflecting the mind. So for example, just one random one out of here, in the alternative to the Delinquent, which in the original game, for those who don't know, is kind of your punk, your punchy type character. They're where the pack makers are trying to take control of you. They're the one playbook that punches back and says, fuck you, no. I decided to go in the opposite direction with the Enforcer, which is kind of a very somewhat political notion of, like, enforcers of the law as this ultimate, form of subservience. So this idea of like selling your soul to a higher authority, and that reflecting in your body becoming increasingly inhuman and machine-like as you are, like, brought to this point of not being your own person anymore, but being someone else's creature.
Yeah, a cog in the machine.
Exactly. So, like, a big thing that you kind of get by the end of it is one of the things you can eventually do as the Enforcer is reach this point where your body stops being a body. Your body becomes like a vessel for your spirit that just keeps going no matter what happens to it. And to me, transformation is a big part of that, in that it's about the violation of the body. Like, transformation can be euphoric, it can be lovely, it can be about embracing a side of yourself that you would otherwise repress, but it can also be about dysphoria and violation and just this nastiness that reflects the like a bad mentality.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know with both We Live Forever as well as Inhuman Resources, there's very much like this ongoing theme of, like, putting these sort of, like, potentially interesting transformation scenarios, but under the umbrella of like more like pointed messaging about society, like especially like, you know, within human resources, like the structure of like being forced to work as part of this corporation where you don't know what the hell's happened on the surface versus, you know, the exploration and we live forever and the different packs you might get into, and how that then influences your form. And so I guess I was curious, and this is really a question for both of you, like as you worked on either the writing or the art in your kind of respective projects, what the kind of driving theme of this sort of commentary, how it influenced the way in which you were approaching the topic, and if it was coming from like a more personal place, or if it was more just wanting to kind of critique how a lot of our society is just structured right now.
Bats, you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think societal critique is a part of it. Basically, everybody who worked on both of the games is trans, and I think there's definitely some degree of like that kind of dehumanization aspect to it, like sort of reflecting that societal kind of that society's tendency to do that to, you know, people that don't fit within that exact mold, and also how the rich and powerful can pretty much treat you like an animal and get away with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And to add on to that, I think it's just true to say that pretty much all art is in some way both political and personal, but especially in the case of these games, like they are very much reflective of like they're very societally critiquing, but they're also very personal. I know that a lot of the stuff in Human I can't really speak to as much, but it definitely kind of speaks to like these ideas of what you're forced to be, but how to make it your own. And for me, with Sinner and Sin, you know, this idea of like feeling trapped by a system and either making the best out of it, or doing the best you personally can within it was a major theme. This idea of the world is kind of shitty right now, and you know, like this. You know, I don't want to like be like, oh, let's like just wallow in feeling depressed and hopeless, but like also let's kind of play in that space a little bit. Let's get into this idea of what it feels like and kind of indulge in like the, you know, these nasty notions. Like a lot of the pack makers I included in the expansion book are very much about consumption and power. There's a heavy theme of like one of the pack like some of the pack makers are like a chef who breaks down their cooks and into ingredients, and a tailor who works you to the bone and then turns you into clothing for profit, and one that is an unsubtle allegory for AI that is literally fed by artist blood, that just trying to turn everyone into machines, and like gives you a power where you can just vomit up other people's blood and make a shitty object that like kind of does what you want it to.
I wonder what that's commentating on. I don't know. It's just so esoteric to me. You know, like
truly, it is
very subtle. Oh yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that, and the thing that I really like about that kind of flavor of game, and I know that, and we'll kind of maybe get to this, but one of the things I really like about those games is that you get to play around in a kind of sandbox that has a similar structure to whatever sort of like spaces we're existing in that moment, but the fantasy in quotations is obviously one part transformation being integrated, but also like having interesting ways to either surmount the sandbox's limits, so to speak, and find a way kind of out, or alternatively to find a way to burrow in but make it horny, basically. And I like that both of those seem to have like an angle here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like a cognizant thing, because I know there's some people who are like, oh, you know, if I'm dealing with XYZ, I want my media to be escapism. This is very much the opposite of that. But in a sense, you're also getting avenues to potentially escape. And so I guess I was curious to hear your thoughts on if that sort of line of thinking came up at any point during these kind of development conversations.
I mean, yeah, I think inherent in anything that's kind of horny, like I think horror and like smut are almost kind of intrinsically like intertwined. I mean, like any horror movie, it's a bunch of like hot teenagers getting, you know, chopped apart by a machete or something. But we kind of took a big chunk of that specifically for Inhuman Resources. Like, I mean, yeah, you are experiencing the horror of like losing your autonomy and being ground under the heel of like, or being ground under the heel of like these people who are oppressing you, but also one of the people that is oppressing you is a really hot cow lady who is gonna turn you into the biggest, best sheep or the most productive cow. And yeah, she's probably gonna, you know, later on you're gonna get butchered for meat, but right now, maybe you can work something with that. Maybe you can use that to support your community. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, there's definitely something inherently, you know, like yeah, it's maybe not all pure escapism, but it is presenting a version of this thing where like the worst thing that can happen to you is still at least going to be kind of hot, and like, you know, you may be somewhat powerless in theory, but you're exploring this with your friend. I know this is kind of projecting a little bit onto tables where, you know, maybe this isn't the case for everybody and everything, but
sure,
ideally you should be playing these games with people who you like and who you can trust. And so even if it's grim, even if it's nasty, there's still always going to be a degree to which you're like, hey, here are these impossibly vast and crushing systems, but your friend gets to be the one to, you know, like kind of like restrain that and put it in a way where you get to lash out or be crushed or, you know, just go absolutely feral. And it's safe. It's okay to feel your feelings and then to step away and have had a good time with your friends. And you can kind of get a little bit of that, you know, those negative feelings out in a place, in a space that is, you know, not going to hurt, except in the good ways, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so much of TTRPG crafting, like the good campaigns, the ones that really stick to you, I find come out of that sort of table where there is that understanding around you know, like the connections you have with each of the players and such, but also like the shared want to create an experience that is roughly in line to some degree with everyone's individual expectations. And I find that, especially when it comes to games like this, it really helps to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page so that when you then really get into it, like it really hits in a way that maybe something from like a more standard like D&D or whatever just really wouldn't ever really be able to get into.
Yeah, there's a degree to which like the power fantasy that's baked into most RPGs, or the disempowerment, like most RPGs either are you are the hero, you're going to be able to do it, or man, you thought you got to be the hero in D&D. This one, you get no power at all. And there's it's not as common to find those spaces where like you're in a disempowering situation, but you still get to feel cool. You still get to feel good. And I think there's an important middle ground there that is comparatively underserved, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I guess then I know one of the other things, and this is more on your end, Duhad. I know that one of the things you've worked on as well is some IODM scenarios, and I was curious to hear a little bit more about that because I know that like we've talked with Aranya before on the show about like the creation process, and of course Duck has been a really big part of that from start to finish. But I was curious to hear a bit more about those scenarios and like if there was any sort of commonalities in the theming between these other games that we were just talking about in line with what you've kind of been working on.
So yeah, there is, and I think it's kind of interesting because there's been for context for the people at home, IODM, the Isle of Dr. Moreau, came out. It was originally based on this old Gaia online role playing thing. Duck was kind of the lead creative behind this RPG, and his style is all over it. Like there's a very particular Duckness to it. Two of the official expansions that would have come out for like within the book, had it reached certain Kickstarter goals, were made by Duck's co-writer for To Change, Ewan, and they have a very distinctive alternative style. I helped finish those out because there was some additional writing that was needed. And reading through it, there's a very different style. Like in the base game, it's very, like it's queer, it's freaky, but there's this real sense of like there are these very bad guys and these like very kind of morally questionable people, but in the end, you're kind of meant to like vibe with these bad people. In Ewan's one, there's a lot more of a focus on romance and love. Like there's many more lesbians. It's very like you're kind of meant to be much more sympathetic to the lead doctors. And when I was writing my own one, which I began writing before I had access to the book, basically just off of the playtest, I was going off of my own, like kind of mentality with the stuff, which is much more abusive, like much more these are people doing unethical experiments on people. You're not really necessarily supposed to like them. Like this is about being trapped in a situation and having to build community to get out of it. Like not necessarily that you need to romance the doctors. You need to work with your people. You need to come together. You need to advocate for yourself and eventually escape or don't, depending on how well you can build those communities and those bridges. So the Isle of Dr. Moreau Lost at Sea, which is the reskin I wrote myself, very much kind of focuses on this theme of, like there is, like the doctors might mean well. The doctors might, these people, these politicians, these, people in authority over you, they might genuinely mean well in many cases. That can never wash away the fact that what they are doing to you is wrong, and you should be advocating for yourself. You should be standing up for yourself, and you should be working with the people around you, while also recognizing the people around you, like some of them are going to be your comrades, some of these people are going to help lift you up, and other ones are going to drag you right back down into the bucket. Like they will crab bucket you. And I think is like a big difference between, again, the three kind of main creators doing versions of this story, like our own individual mentalities and what we want out of, how we see the world, how we see fiction, what we want out of our stories. Yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely fascinating. And honestly, I'm curious then, because obviously, you're taking a very different tact with that. I was curious what kind of the feedback you got on that sort of approach with like how you approached the writing with the doctors and like the storyline and theming with that when you kind of ran it by Duck and Ewan and Aranya.
Well, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to run by Aranya, though I've actually talked to her. She's lovely. I'm very glad I had the opportunity, but I unfortunately haven't really had a chance to run that by her yet. But gotcha. Running it by Duck, his reaction at first was basically, oh, okay, interesting, and a lot of like, by the way, you're making these characters kind of unlikable. You could make them these other characters that are meant to be unlikable, and shift these things around, and it would be more in line with the original tone. And I kind of explained to him like, I know I could make them more in line with the original tone, but like, I want to kind of have this. I don't want this to be. You've played Isle of Dr. Moreau, but here's Isle of Dr. Moreau, but with different characters filling these same roles. Like this is this is for people who want to like experience something fresh, which is a thing with all my games that I've made a lot of over the years. Is every time I make a new game, I want it to feel original. And to his credit, Duck has been extremely supportive of that. When like I've explained my vision, he was like, "Oh, okay, cool, yeah." Like I don't think this should be people's first experience with the game, but like this is a fun alternate take for someone who wants to be a little bit more weird and uncomfortable in places.
Yeah. No, I really dig that, and I think that especially when it comes to kind of these sorts of expansions and reskins. A huge appeal is getting to try something new and to see the original in kind of a new perspective with a new coat of paint, et cetera, et cetera. So personally speaking, I mean, I always find that approach to be super refreshing. Would either of you say that like in the past when you've worked on projects related to like TF and the TTRPG space, have there ever been any sort of points where you were working on that sort of like reskinning or like working within the confines of a different vision and you found like there were specific challenges in kind of bringing it to light? And if so, what kind of were they?
Baz, you want to start with us off?
I think you probably have a bit more on this front than I do.
Fair enough. I will say for things like IODM and We Live, I've been very lucky to be working with people who are very artist forward, like very art first. Like if you have a different vision than I Feel Odd or Eclipse or Duck, like they're going to tell you, go with God, like have at it, do your thing. But in the past, when I was specifically working on those early projects on the video games, Exiles of Aphrodisia and TF Tycoon, I ended up kind of becoming a designer on those games as it went along. But part of that was because I had to really fight just every step of the way for like even having a little bit of my vision in it, because not that I wasn't being a team player, but just because I had to kind of work within other people's frameworks, and a lot of times those frameworks just didn't feel. Go a little very brief tangent, hopefully, but thing with Exiles of Aphrodisia, which was again my first big game I worked on, the vision wasn't super clear on that from the get-go. There was this idea at first that it was going to be about demons enslaving humans, and the demons were also meant to be kind of good, like slavery, but hot, so it's fine actually? ? But like at the same time, like constantly ping-ponging back and forth on like, oh, but they should be nasty because they're mean, evil demons, but also, I don't want them to be too mean. So like, so put in one where they really just like beat the shit out of you and then like talk about enslaving you forever. But then also put in this other one where they're like nice and sympathetic, and you're meant to like
You
them.
can't have it both ways.
Yeah,
You really can't.
So I'd have to like really argue and try to find a way to work within that. As it went on, and as I went from just a writer to the head writer. And had more of my vision able to be kind of added to the game, I still had to deal with the fact that it was a game where every month we'd have a Patreon poll and like the Patreon benefit, one of the big Patreon benefits was that people could vote on what they wanted to see added to the game, what type of encounters and transformations.
Right.
And I'd have to constantly try and figure out like, okay, people voted in this obvious anime reference. We can't do a copyrighted piece of work. I don't want to put in some of this stuff. This stuff clashes with the game, but also it's required. The people paid good money. They voted. They've made it clear this is what they want. I need to figure out how to make this work. And I did not enjoy that process, and I would not go back to it willingly, but I think it was very important for me and for why I've been able to be as successful as I've been as a writer in a space that is not often terribly kind to writers. This is a very art-focused medium, but part of it is, I think my success has been just having cut my teeth on having to constantly work to other people's specifications meant that later on when I started writing for various artists as like a comic writer, like writing the scripts for comics or writing stories to go along with art pieces and stuff, I was able to be very flexible because of the fact that I was just used to being like, okay, that's your vision. I am going to try to make it work as best as I possibly can and try and like put my own spin on it while coloring within your lines. I think it's an underrated skill, honestly. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I do think a lot of people who get started in this business as a writer or an artist struggle sometimes with the fact that they're like, I want to be a singular artistic, font. And I hate being told what to do. Yeah. You gotta learn how to do what you're told sometimes.
Yeah, it's the nature of any large collaborative project, there is always, at some level, there will be an ultimate artistic vision, but the art itself is always going to be a mishmash and blending together of different perspectives, different thoughts, and different, stylistic preferences and theming and such. Like, that is always the nature of a collaborative project. And so, in particular, I first of all, I agree with you in that I think it's a very important skill to have. I also think that, and not to, shit on anyone's approach, but the concept of like building things via Patreon voting, I have my deepest sympathies because I find that in particular it can really conflict with what the ultimate artistic vision is if, people want to see one particular thing, and it's like, okay, well, that's great, but like my artistic vision was to do X, Y, Z. And so all the projects who end up doing that, I have the utmost respect and the deepest sympathy for, because I can only imagine the kind of curveballs it can really throw at you as a creator. I will just say as an aside, and I will take this on the chin if I'm wrong, but the project with the slavery sounded like it was written by white people. I'm just being honest.
So yes, in fact,
Okay.
funny story, and this is putting someone on once.
No.
I want to be very clear about this. Judu, who was the lead of that project, wonderfully kind person, genuinely like good individual person, like good heart, good spirit. One of the people they had working on that project at the beginning, and who had I blame partly for the direction it was. I'm not going to name names, but they said some things that that Jadu told me about, and I was like, you need to kick this person off the thing, because they were talking about gay people and black people and Jewish people in a way that I cannot repeat. And I was like, hey, like I am culture, like I'm pretty I'm very lax in my Judaism. I am very divorced from my Colombian heritage, but I am at least connected enough with that stuff, and I also have a fucking brain and heart, and I do not want to work with goddamn like white supremacists. That is not a thing.
Yeah.
Don't be an asshole, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a low bar, and yet every day people bury themselves underneath it. But anyways, I felt like I had to comment on that too. But I overall I agree with that too. Like I feel like especially when it comes to collaboration stuff, like it's always a balance of different people's perspectives. But then there's some perspectives we can leave out. So
yes.
But yeah, I guess before I move on, I did want to ask. For the both of you, what would you say is the most rewarding thing you've gotten to do within the space so far, and are maybe potentially hoping to do more of in the future when it comes to working with within the TTRPG space?
I'm still relatively new to this space, but it's just been so cool really getting a chance to do collaborative projects with others. Like a lot of what I've done prior has either been commissions, which are, you're just doing something to someone's spec, or my own comics, which are all you, but then all of the pressure is on you to figure out the writing and the flow and everything. So getting to just be like one part of this like beautiful thing that just flowers, these beautiful terrible projects, has been really wonderful. I'm really hoping to do more. Because getting to, especially these last few, I've kind of got to set the aesthetic tone for a lot of our projects.
Right.
I don't always want to be taking the lead on that, but it's been really really cool.
Hell yeah.
I will say it's a little bit of a zag from the stuff I've been talking about up until now, and it would be maybe it'll be its own future conversation. But the thing I've kind of really embraced most and loved most about getting into the TTRPG space has been breaking into solo journal game creation. Like taking. I love writing these big expansion books, and I've in the past I've written my own system, which is probably never going to see the light of day because it is a monster. But the thing I've really found I've loved is making these relatively smaller, more condensed solo games where I can start playing with the medium. And
right.
I've always been writing is my passion. It's the thing that I've built my career off of. It's the thing that brings me the most joy. But there's something so fun for me about getting into the mechanical guts and trying to find how to make mechanics and like the themes work together. Transformation, especially as a theme to do with mechanics and playing. I've at this point played with tarot. I have worked with playing cards, with dice. I've tried all these different mediums, and seeing the ways in which different ways of even just randomizing numbers, how that can like create chimerical TFs and theme TFs, and writing these things that like are meant to do one thing but kind of leave the door open for people to be like, hey, yeah, I made this game called Short Stack. This whole thing is about like making little monsters, and people were like, oh, I like the idea, but can I make a Minotaur? And I was like, oh, that's great. Let me see how I can work what I already have to keep my original vision, but let people take this and just go in whatever direction they want and express themselves creatively however they want. And recently, actually, I've been introducing some of those solo games to other friends, and a thing I've discovered with them is they work insanely well as the basis of two-player, like one-on-one RPGs with like a GM-less style game with just playing against another person using the journaling rules as prompts for scenes. And I'm so excited to explore more of that. To just open up the space.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot that I could probably get into on the solo journaling. Maybe that'll be a future conversation, but I find the concept to be so interesting, and it's not one that I'm like inherently geared towards, because in my head, especially just because of how I was introduced to it, I was very much like, oh yes, TTRPGs, collaborative with other people. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in the solo journaling space that I find interesting, and I still need to honestly properly dig into myself.
I recommend it.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I did also want to chat with you both about, because I know it's something that comes up in both like some of the games you've written and also like some of the art that you've made bounce, is stuff related to like robot and inanimate TF. And in particular, personally speaking, I see a lot of appeal to both. Though I probably lean towards more of the other inanimates than just robots. But all that being said, I was curious to hear your thoughts as to what kind of originally got you into like creating art related to that concept within like transformation, and also what it is that you find makes it so alluring to create art about.
I think what kind of initially snagged me is as I was starting to get into like the transformation community and the furry community, because it really happened about the same time with me, is pool toys. Pool toys are fantastic.
Yes!
Yeah.
Let's go.
It had to learn how to draw shine, had to learn how to draw seams, all that good stuff.
Of course.
But with that, like, it comes when you're thinking about pool toy TF, like, there's a lot to that. Like, what is the physical sensation of, like, being hollowed out? And, like, your skin is more of a, like, an elastic kind of rubber. And I think that's kind of bled into a lot of my inanimate work is, I mean, also, my college degree is actually sculpture and ceramics.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a lot of like very tactile love even outside of a like furry art sense for like I love transformations into clay, for example, and like being molded in that way, because I've got a lot of experience in working with clay and like how different materials react. Like, okay, so what would it feel like to have your body be like, mooshed and like moved around in that way as you kind of lose definition between what was your limbs, what was your organs, what was your sensory apparatuses. And I think that kind of, there's just so many interesting questions that get raised. Like, I mean, obviously transforming into anything, like, it's going to be a whole, like, there's a whole sensory shift. But I think it's so extreme when it's going from something that is organic to something that is inorganic or, manufactured. That, I don't know. I think it's just really, I love the thought process of like, okay, what does it feel like to be this thing that is just entirely outside of human experience?
I don't mean to cut you off, April, because I want to hear your answer too, but I just have to say, I'm utterly fascinated by your mention with the clay stuff. And I feel like I have to ask this question because it's the thing I most commonly compare photo manipulation to, the kind of remolding and clay approach. At any point, have you ever interacted with that medium as well in kind of your art process, or has that always been something that's just kind of like separate and not really necessarily been of interest?
Like with photo manipulation, it's honestly not anything I've really tried. Like I've done draw-overs and stuff before. Maybe I should give it a shot. I think a big part of it though was like, if I'm gonna, for a lot of my life, it's like if I'm gonna be making like TF stuff, like for a very long time, I did not have anyone in my actual physical life that I could talk to about any of this. And also, I didn't like taking photos of myself because, again, I'm trans, and it was seeing my own face was deeply dysphoric. Much less tweaking it on a computer for hours on end. So no, I haven't really played around with that, but it would be fun to give it a shot.
Very biased. I would recommend it. But,
yeah, no kidding.
But sorry, go ahead, April.
No worries. Actually, just very briefly to add on to the end of that, I've not done much with photo manipulation. I'm not much of an artist, but my friend D6 Galaxy, arts on FA, a while ago did a photo manipulation of a picture that I took for them, and seeing what they were able to do with that made me like, oh wow, this. I see it. I get it. The staring off, crying. Like I understand now. No, but okay. So sort of a goofy start to the answer. The short version of how I got into inanimate and robot and all that is knowing Bounce. I had previously been mildly interested in this stuff, but spending a lot of time around her and her deep love of the subject really kicked it off. But
I'm a corruptive influence.
You really are. But it's actually kind of funny because the very first thing, I've only relatively more recently gotten into it as a thing that I focus on in my work, but the very first thing I wrote, like in any sort of semi-professional context for transformation stuff, was on Transformania Time, where I got my start. I actually began by writing clothing TF because they had a bounty board of just like, here's a bunch of like art people did that no one has written anything for, mostly just clothes because who cares? And so I just wrote a bunch of clothing TF to go with that stuff as like my first main thing, and that I didn't really do too much with that for a really long time, but slowly over time, friends of mine, including Anthromage, who are into inanimate stuff, love Anthromage so much. What a darling. Sorry.
Yes.
Anthromage rules.
We've been friends for so long. She's such a sweetheart. But anyway, sorry. Gushing about my friends later. Her love of that got me to start writing some things. Some of the earliest stories I uploaded on FA were for her, stuff about like plushie transformation or turning into clothing. And I really enjoyed that, but I didn't really get into it until, again, I met Bounce, and she kind of helped to reignite my love for it. And since then, one of my first solo journaling games was Stone, which is all about petrification and turning into...
so fun.
Thank you. Turning into inanimate humanoids, and then I in not to go too spoilery, but in Lost at Sea, the Isle of Dr. Moreau thing, there's a heavy theme on machines and robots and some inanimate stuff there. And in We Live Forever, Sinner and Sin, I had multiple pack makers whose focus is on turning into objects, turning into things to be owned, and God, I'm very normal about the concept of being turned into something that just exists and is owned. And I think talking with other inanimate fans, I think there's a degree to which the idea of like some people get into feral TFs because they like the idea of just not being a person anymore. It is like that next level of, but what if you weren't even a living creature anymore? What if you were like, it's not that you're dead. It's not that you're like out of the world or anything, but just you are now a thing that someone else owns and watches and dusts or takes care of or wears or jumps into the pool with, and like the idea of being that reduced down to just things like not to just bring everything back into politics and stuff, but it's like, hey, in the modern age, especially if you're a queer person, man, don't you just kind of sometimes want to stop being a person? Don't you just want to go and like live in a museum and just not have to be a person?
Yeah.
I think. Sorry. I
was just gonna make a joke and say that it's like the opposite of like people want to go feral. It's like, don't you just want to like go squeak shit instead of ape shit at some point? Like it's just how it be.
100%.
Like. Sorry, go ahead, Bounce.
No, I was gonna just to piggyback off that. I think it's it ties into like you have been made into something that now serves a particular purpose. Like there is an explicit thing that you are designed to do. Like, and I think for a lot of, this is speaking for myself, but for me at least, that can be weirdly comforting in a way. Like, existing as a human is hard. It's very complex. You have to worry about a lot of things all of the time, and you have to be many different things to many different people. And if you're a pool toy, all you have to do is look cute and float, and ideally not spring a leak.
Yes.
Or if you do, that's fun too. But that's a whole different thing.
The gifted child to wanting to just like go from like the expectations of the world are on your shoulders to, hey, I can just be a feather duster. I can literally like be held and waved around, and that's my job, and I'm doing it well.
Oh, and I'm going to be the best feather duster. I'm going to be the best one that you can possibly get.
Yep. There's no points or competition, but I'm sure as hell going to try and make it one as an inanimate object.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel called out right now. Don't at me, like Jesus. Well, and it's funny too because like and you've kind of touched on this already in what you both have said actually, but like oftentimes I feel like when we talk about like inanimate TF and like how it plays into people's interests, it's almost always brought up in the context of like, well, how do we explain this? Oh, it's kind of like BDSM, and I'm always curious to ask how like people feel about that comparison because it's very much not that in the traditional sense, but at the same time there's like a huge element of like either submission or like immobility or being taken care of. I feel like it's very much running adjacent at a minimum.
As someone who's into both, I definitely think that like there is a degree to which not to get too personal, but it can be quite lovely to like that the experience of being made helpless and made still, and like the fantasy of just you don't have to stop, you can just do that, forever maybe, is fairly pleasant, and I know there's it can be degrading. And I say that positively. Like you can be literally made less than. You can be made I'm not into it myself, but like people who like the idea of being stepped on, be stepped on. Like the George Orwell, boot stepping on the face of humanity forever. Except you get to be the boot,
or the doormat.
Yeah, like you're
or the doormat. Yeah,
like you are the steppy.
Oh man, no, I love it. I guess then like what I'd like to ask then too is obviously Robot TF is part of Inanimate TF. It is very much you are becoming a thing that is made up of metal and silicone and materials instead of flesh and bone. Now when it comes to Robot TF, I find like there are kind of two different tracks that you can take with it. It can be this is you've become a robot, but like you are fully in control of yourself, like you are the master of your own programming, so to speak. And then you have kind of the angle where it's like, okay, you've become a robot and now someone is going to direct you and make you do X, Y, Z, and you don't really have control in the situation, but you are experiencing all the things that you were kind of being undergone to do and such. Which of the two tracks do you prefer, and why do you lean to that angle versus the other one is my question.
Oh, that's really tough because they're both like there's real big appeal to both, right? Like
sure, yeah.
I do like I think with that latter category there's definitely a similar appeal to kind of what we were talking about earlier with the inanimacy and how it kind of mirrors like BDSM.
Yes.
That say you become a mech and then someone is like literally piloting you, and you may be taking in all of this information, but at the end you're giving them the output that they desire. I think that's really fun. I like that kind of mecha stuff. There's actually I think about this a lot, is kind of the like the you are a robot but you still have a somewhat autonomous brain that when you are piloted basically functions as like the processor for all of the things that your big metal body actually does, but like the executive decisions are being made by someone else.
Right.
You see that a lot in some... There's an anime I particularly like, Dragon's Heaven, that the two main characters are a robot and their pilot, which I think that left a big mark in my brain.
Well, yeah, to kind of go off of that, I feel like the original question, do you prefer the idea of being kind of just human plus being like a machine that is essentially a person, but just a robot, or made bot being like a machine that is someone's property? I feel like pretty cleanly for me it is, I would give anything to just be a robot, to just be robot version of me. No more back pain, the ability to like
oh my god, yes. Replace my knees. Please replace my knees now, you know? Like
as someone with insomnia, as someone with chronic back pain, as someone whose brain goes a mile a minute, like the ability to just turn off certain functions, or just to go sleep mode, conk, beautiful.
We're going to get the maintenance team on that.
Yeah. However, but from a horny perspective, 100 billion%, hit the remote control, and is like, no matter what I want to do, that doesn't matter anymore. You've got the remote control. Oh my fan.
yes.
But similarly, I and this is not even just a TF thing. Like the number of autistic people I know and am, the number of times
you said it, not me. I was going to mention it, but you said it, not me.
Here's the thing: I have never once met an autistic person, again, myself included, who has not at some point said, God, I wish I could be a robot. Being a robot, like, I just feel like a robot already. It would be great if I could just be a robot. And it's like, as a TF person, it's like, yes, exactly.
Yep. No, I know one of those very intimately, and he talks about it a lot. So that does not surprise me. I definitely think, and it's interesting you bring it up, because I find that with the comparisons to Robot TF, and again, we've been getting into kind of this angle for the entire episode, but like, I find that in a weird way, sometimes it goes towards reclaiming humanity in a sense, because we are often treated like cogs in the machine, like you're supposed to be a good worker bot, right? And, the appeal of going into that angle and then also making it horny, I mean, again, fan self, right? Like that's cool, that's interesting. And in particular with Robot TF, I find that because you can have those two tracks, like I mentioned at the start, everyone then gets to have their own kind of angle on it. Like you were saying earlier, Bounce, of like almost like that in between. Like that's a really unique and interesting approach that I have seen before and stuff, but I feel like it doesn't come up quite as much. And
I'll try and fix that.
I find that the kind of range you can get is cool. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just making a joke, but I'll try and make more of that for you. But no.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, to tee you up a little bit here, Bounce, the subject of like robots as cogs in the machine and stuff, and the idea of finding liberation in a society that does that. There's a very cyberpunk element to that, and Bounce here has a whole thing that is basically all about that.
Oh boy, are we transitioning into that? Okay,
even just briefly.
I love a lot of that aspect with like I worked in a factory for a while. And during that, like, it's a lot of what you said. Like, if I have to be a cog in a machine, can I at least be a more efficient, purpose-built cog? And I think that kind of has bled into a lot of my work throughout the years. I have this whole cyberpunk setting that I've done rather a few comics and like TF sequences in, Neo-Gob City, in which goblins get turned into all kinds of fun things. I did like a whole big comic. I'm working on another one, slowly but surely. And there's been like kind of drone cyborg TF stuff in there.
Right.
And kind of exploring, like, okay, so you've been made into a robot, and they don't need you anymore, so they've discarded you. So now you're in a body that was never yours, and was kind of forced upon you. How do you, like, however you are, like, modular, so how do you adjust yourself? How do you jailbreak and modify yourself to be you again, or to be a new version of you? I kind of went all over the place there.
That's right. No, yeah. The thing is, I think it ties into the original question of, like, like we're talking about how in our society the idea of being turned like being crushed by these forces beyond our control, and whether or not you fight against them or give in to them. Neo Gob City in the comics, The Gardener and The Doe that you've been working on. Is that what it's called, or is this a different one?
Yep, that's working title, The Doe, yeah.
These comics are basically kind of about that middle ground of submitting to it, and then years and years and years later, what it means to be yourself again after having, like, given up to the machine, like having become, like, given everything to the society, to the grinding machine of capitalism, what it then means to be human, or a goblin in this case, in the aftermath of that. Like, you can't just be a machine forever, because they will eventually discard you, and if you're not dead by that point, what do you do? What is you after you have given up yourself?
You're stuck in this body. What do you do with it now?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I find there's so much to mine from that, and I feel like when it comes to, like, trying to figure out what you do in that situation, it says a lot about, and especially, like, when it comes to, like, writing a scenario or a story like that, or a comic, so much of it comes down to how do we fundamentally view ourselves after so many parts of ourselves have been stripped away. And I think that's such an interesting concept to really get into, and you really can only do that with, like, very specific types of inanimate to some degree, because you can still have, like, the quasi functionality of a humanoid, but at the same time you've been, like, irrevocably changed in ways that are unrecognizable as, like, just a normal human, so to speak.
Right. Like, your senses don't even really function the same way anymore. Like, you don't experience things. You don't feel the temperature. You, like, experience it as a data point. Like, oh, yeah, it's 40 degrees. My built-in thermometer tells me that, but I don't really. Outside of my core temp being being influenced slightly, that doesn't really mean anything to me anymore.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. I guess then when it comes to some of the ways that you've kind of approached it within the comic that you've been making, Bounce, are there any particular I guess, angles on Robot TF that you've really enjoyed exploring that you didn't get to in any of your previous projects?
Golly. I mean, I think I've, like, for Robot TF stuff is relatively more recent for me. I've kind of had some of that. I think earlier it was a lot of, like, sort of that, like, that domination thing that we were talking about, where, it's being given instructions, it's being programmed. But I think a lot of it has kind of been, that I want to explore more, is really, again, that kind of sensory aspect to it. Because Robot TF is, like, pushing a lot of the other kind of materiality, I guess, of other inanimate TFs kind of to an extreme. Yeah. Because it's not just that you're now made out of these materials, it's that you have all of these component parts on top of whatever programming or conditioning is going on in whatever passes for your mind at that point. And because you are a system that is running all of these things, and not a human mind anymore exactly, you have, like, this hyper-awareness of all of these sensors, visual input, audio input, like, what's going on inside of your own body. Like, oh, this part is malfunctioning, and you don't necessarily experience it as pain, but it's just like, oh shit, my motor seized up. I need to get that replaced. And kind of the I love like mecha gore, I guess you could call it, where it kind of like disassembly, maintenance, getting put back together, all of that stuff. I find both really interesting on a technical level and on like a sensational level, and also just really fucking hot. Like, let's.
I mean, I gotta agree with you there. Can't deny it.
I need a mechanic mommy to put me in, like, you know, put me in the mech bay and pull me apart and fix everything that's wrong with me. I'm fine. I'm normal about this.
Oh man, would you say, April, have you had any kind of experiences writing robot or inanimate TF in that kind of vein that has challenged your, like, I guess, priors in terms of how you usually would approach those kinds of transformations?
I haven't really gotten as much into it as Bounce has. I have written one full novel-sized story, but like, for the most part, I tend to be a short fiction writer. A lot of interconnected bits, but not a lot of like really digging into those deep, long-term things, especially with inanimate. But it has been a thing of, like, especially with the Isle of Dr. Moreau one, the Lost at Sea one. There is something about the idea of the difference between various states of life and the questioning of humanity, of what it means to be a person. Because a subject I've always found kind of interesting is, and this is a little basic bitchy in terms of sci-fi, but like this idea of what is a person? Like, is it, if you think there, therefore you are applied to someone who is a copy of a copy of a copy of a person. Like, like, at what point do you stop being an actual independent person, and at what point does I don't want to get into too big of a spoiler about the thing, but a big theme of Lost at Sea is like the humanity of clones and robots, and like, at what point is what is, like, humanity? Like, is it, like, are human beings, and like, in addition to that, also, like, where is the line of human and animal? Like, you have these three different vectors of like human experience, and which ones are valid and which ones are not. There's kind of, by the end of the game, it kind of boils down to this three-pointed question of what version of humanity is valid. Like, are any, are all, are none? Like, what is it to be human when there are no more like humans in the traditional sense, like in the conversation? Like, like, it's, I guess kind of similar to Soma, like, as the thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say, as you were saying all of that, like, it really reminded me of Soma, especially because I got to watch my friend Aki Dave, who was on the podcast earlier this season, replay Soma, and so much of it touches on what does it mean to be human, and like the copies and clones and such. Like, I think there's so many interesting ethical questions there. Also, flippantly, what is a man if not a miserable pile of secrets, right? So, I mean, it all comes together.
Especially with transformation, like, we're, like, a lot of us get into TF, and I think this is sort of a little ramble, but like, a thing I've found when making TF games, because I also make TF board games, it's a whole thing, but a thing I've often found when playtesting these is like, people come to TF a lot of times because they want to see the TF. Like the lose condition, the obvious lose condition of a transformation game is the transformation, and yet that's what people want. So how do you incentivize people to play through to the end when they've seen the transformation, when they lost, and then they're good? And I think that opens up an interesting question, that I tried to explore a little bit in the IODM thing of, like, okay, again, like, what is it to not be human anymore? Like through transformation, as well as all these other vectors. Like, what is it, like, are you really not a human anymore? Like, if you transform, if Bounce, just to take a totally random example, if you were to turn into a great blue heron,
no.
Like,
terrible.
I know, like, but like, would you actually, like, what point do you stop being a person if you turn into a heron? Is it when you are no longer recognizable as a quote unquote normal human, like when you're an anthro? Is it when you are a bird but with a human mind? Is it when you are fully a bird, or are you always going to be human by virtue of the fact that you were born a human, you were raised a human, and on some philosophical like standpoint, there is always going to be something unethical about, like, you can't hunt and kill a person who's been transformed into a bird, because you're still killing a person even if they're fully feral at this point.
Yeah.
But is that actually true? Like, are they still a person? They're a bird. But on a gut level, I think and most people would agree that, like, yeah, that's fucked up. That's really dark if you think about, like, a person turned into a cow and then being butchered and eaten. Like, some people are into that, but in general, like, like that registers, even if they're fully mentally gone and everything, like they are 100% indistinguishable from a cow, we'd still read that as you just killed a person. Like, that's like, no matter how much you might want to get away from being human through transformation, isn't on some level, like, it just going to always be true that people will see you as a person because we empathize and we view your humanity.
Yeah, we anthropomorphize.
Yeah.
The point at which you stop being a human is the point at which someone in your comments goes, so are they, like, basically dead now?
Fair point.
Oh, we love a good comment. Oh my god. Will it be a sequence,
when are you going to finish this?
Yeah, is there going to be more? Where's the second part? And then people don't read the second part. It's like, okay, cool, great, thanks.
The number of that would be unethical. Actually, if that happened, that would be bad. I wouldn't like that. Like,
that's
great.
That's actually a lot of what went into The Gardener. Is just like, okay, yeah. So here's the TF on page 4. We're going to go for another 300 years. So.
Oh my gosh. I guess then as a last question about inanimate TF broadly, because I know we spent most of it talking about robot, which I was very excited to do.
Yeah.
I have to ask, when it comes to pool toy transformation, what would you say is the best part about it? And this is a totally selfish question, but because it was mentioned, I'm going for it.
I have a fondness for things with long necks in general. But it was back on, like, this old ass website, like, I think it was like your scene macrophile or something. But I have there's this one sequence, or this one story that really just stuck in my brain forever. And someone's getting turned into, like, one of those, like, giraffe floaties. And there's this part where their head just goes, like, it just feels like it's shooting off their body as their neck just, like, goes up, and then the snout just fills out in front of their field of vision. That part attacks my life points directly. That I love it. I always love just the explosive thump in any pool toy TF.
Yeah, it's got, like, that power and, like, force behind it.
Right? Yeah.
Defo. I gotta say, I think it's the fact that, like, as a fan of permanence, like, the fact that pool toys have such a good, like, it's often hard to, like, I think part of the reason, and I briefly mentioned this pre-show, but, like, people's obsession with things like pregnancy locking and stuff. I think there's a degree to which, like, it can be difficult to narratively or artistically kind of show permanence happening without just drawing a little lock on, or, like, having someone just say, you are permanent now. But, like, pool toys have such a good thing built into it, which is you pop that top, you let the air out, and that realization of, oh, you are just getting folded up and put into the shed till next time they're going to blow you up and toss you in the pool is such a, like, oh, that moment narratively is a perfect thing for like, and it's something that pool toys are not exclusive in having, but it's a very pool toy thing.
Oh, sorry, you thought you were going to turn back and we deflated you? Oh, why would you think that? That's so silly.
Oh, so silly. Pool toys don't think, like...
Oof. There's also, like, on a purely sensory standpoint, like, the whole, like, blowing into a pool toy and, like, expanding. There's a whole thing there, and...
oh, yeah.
I, like on this Christian podcast, I could not get into the various ways in which it would...
Oh, I mean, I'll say it for you. Don't worry. I mean, the blowing on the nozzle definitely doesn't have any sort of analogies to blowing things.
No,
Definitely
no
not.
parallels
Definitely
to
not.
any kind of living creature's
None.
anatomy.
Yeah.
No.
None whatsoever.
I will say I have never once brought any sort of transformation play into the bedroom, and pool toys and nozzles have never been involved in any way, shape, or form.
Definitely
That
not.
would be immoral and unethical and et cetera, et cetera.
Of course, yeah, definitely not on this Good Christian podcast. No, I love it, and I love those answers. I very much see the appeal in both, and in particular, I think like the force in particular, when you've got like some of these changes, be it like a big neck, a big snout, a big tail coming in, like chef's kiss, and then that sort of getting shoved in the box. And I would even add as a wrinkle, and I think this adds to the kind of indeterminate or permanence or whatever angle, when it gets shoved into the box poorly, like it wasn't like originally supposed to be packaged. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Just like shove it in there and whatever. It's really good.
Oh,
Goodness.
that's peak. That's so good.
Oh, man. Well, I did also want to touch on one other thing, because I know that we've kind of like talked about it a little bit on the podcast before, but I think one of the areas in which sometimes artists struggle a little bit is when they want to kind of branch outside of transformation stuff. And I personally, I feel very comfortable producing art within the TF fandom. Like, I've done a few things outside of it, but never necessarily as rewarding for me. But I know that is something that sometimes people butt up against. And so I was curious if either of you have had experiences where you were trying to create art that didn't necessarily fit neatly in this niche, and then felt like there were kind of barriers towards doing so.
Never. I don't know why you even bring that up. No, okay. Bass, why you go first?
Yeah, no, definitely. I love TF. I think I will always love TF. It's great, but at the same time, I have other interests besides that. I really like mecha. Which we links in with the TF, but I can't. Yeah. There's also the aspect of outside of a particular subset of people, I can't necessarily just show off like, hey, here's my sequence of someone turning into a pool toy to anybody. But you kind of run up against a problem, though, is like there are days where I feel a little pigeonholed, because for example, I've been doing some I really love Gundam, and I've been making some kind of silly OC Gundam fanfic stuff, but who is this for but me? Who in my audience is going to give a single fuck about this? I fortunately have had a bit of an outlet for this, because I've had this influx of commission clients who are really into robots, and they really like the way I draw robots. So I've been getting to draw a lot of Pokemecha and dragon robots and all sorts of cool shit like that. And I find that really fun, because it doesn't have the same draw for a lot of my usual audience as my traditional TF stuff does, but it lets me stretch a different set of muscles than I normally get to. And I think that's really great. I like it.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I feel like it's important, especially when we start to feel pigeonholed, to make art that pushes outside of that. And I don't know, maybe you have thoughts on this, but I feel like sometimes a big chunk of it is kind of self-imposed, in the sense of we're like, oh, who really wants to see this, whatnot. And I feel like that touches on some of the incentive structures within making art in this community, but also almost a small level of internalized shame, in the sense of oh, this is what I'm known for, why would I even do anything else?
Yeah, there definitely is that. And especially I make a lot of the majority of my livelihood is made off of commission artworks, and you want to do things that a lot of people are going to see, so they'll be like, oh, I should commission this artist. And when it's the stuff that doesn't necessarily hit, that you don't really get as much of that that kind of positive feedback loop, for better or worse.
Similarly, I have been in this space for a very long time. I've never really felt much of an urge to get out of it, and most of my friends are either in the space as well, or I have been open enough about what I do that I don't feel as much of a pressure to be like, I could show this off to other people. Because, most of the people I'd want to show off to are already, either here with me or know what type of weirdo I am and are thus not going to be that, thrown off by it. But I also am a horror writer. Originally started out doing horror stories, and I do occasionally like to write TF things, and it can definitely be tricky. And it kind of cuts both ways sometimes. Going back into my while Bounce was talking, I kind of went back into my own folders here, and it's one of the earlier stories I wrote on Fur Affinity is a furry horror story called Cannibalistic Sharknoid Underground Dwellers, which and that one title. Shuds, but that one has exactly one favorite. People did not really care for it. More recently, I put out a gay love story, just a couple of male characters that I'm quite fond of, and I wrote a couple of stories about one of them realizing that he's gay and falling in love with another man, and that one's got 4 favorites. And it's I wish people would give those more of a chance, but I understand that's not what people come to my work for. And that's okay. Sometimes I just write things for myself, and I accept the fact that this might genuinely lose me watchers, or might just have people completely ignore it. But sometimes you just got to do it for yourself. In the other direction, for a upcoming Transformation Game Jam, I made a new game called Morion's new game called Exploring the Transformation Nebula. And it's
just the name already.
It's a good one. You're gonna like it. But it's fun. I had a lot of fun writing it, and I think that people are gonna enjoy it. But I kind of realized when I reached the end of it, I could cut relatively little. I could basically just cut out the TF sections, and this would be a perfectly serviceable Star Trek solo journaling game about exploring alien worlds. And I could probably sell this and make money and reach more people with a more generic, theme. But because I'm so into TF and because I want it to be a transformation thing, because that's my passion, I realize that in some ways I am limited in doing things that aren't TF because I've built up this TF career, but also I am limiting myself deliberately to a theme that isn't for everyone. And I think to me it's just I'm comfortable enough in my creative output to feel like I can do the things I want to do when I want to do them, and I am doing well enough that I don't need to water down my what I want to do to appeal to the broadest possible demographic. I have to appeal to the largest demographic within the TF community, but I don't have to make D&D. That's okay. I'm okay with that. And so, I don't know. It's difficult to branch out of TF once you've found your niche. If you become successful, you are becoming successful as a medium-sized fish in a small pond. But I don't know. It's a bit of a give and take. There's a comfort in that, but it also can be a little bit limiting. But depending on how much that limitation affects you, how much you personally wish you could get out there, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think that's a really interesting way of seeing it. It's almost like I've placed this limiter on myself, but that at the same time is also freeing because now I don't need to think about the things beyond that limit. I hadn't really thought about it in that way before, and it makes sense to me, and I'm kind of surprised I hadn't thought about it in that way before. But at the same time, that there is something creatively freeing about okay, if I've put this limit on myself artificially to some degree, but this is also where my creative energy lies, then I don't need to worry about appealing to someone who wouldn't necessarily get it. Like, I guess, like, having that sense of this is authentically what I'm hoping to make within this space, I think is a nice way of viewing it that I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah, I had a conversation not too long ago with I Feel Odd about, and I won't mention the group they were talking about, but they were talking about finding themselves limited in some ways with their ability to get a job with a particular transformation project, specifically because of how much they are now known as the freaky, weird, like We Are Beheld style, like artisanal creator, and that's not for everyone, and that reputation can definitely limit you. But I think that like they are happy in that they get to do the type of art they want to do, and I feel like that's a useful mindset to have. That like, yeah, sure, you might limit some of your creative opportunities in future, but if you get to do the thing you want to do and make the art you want to make, then like, yeah, sure, like, you'll never make the next D&D, but fuck it, who wants to make the next D&D? Like,
yeah, I mean, people shouldn't want to make the next D&D. It sounds awful.
Yeah, a lot of people want to make the next D&D, but fuck those people. No offense.
Yeah, I mean...
Make creative games.
Yes, be creative and don't chase something that, frankly, is not worth the time, because... Unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast will always be a shitty company, and will continue to just, do their thing. I don't think they're going to be losing market share anytime soon, but that means then that we don't have to worry about the stuff made in that space. We can make our own stuff. So,
right.
But yeah, I guess then conversely, when it comes to any sort of the projects that you've made, have you ever started working on something and then shifted it back into like being within the TF space? I don't know if that's like an experience either of you have had before, but I figured I'd ask because I feel like I've definitely done that before with some of my like earlier writing projects where it was like, oh, I'm gonna make this thing and it's not necessarily gonna be related to TF, and oh no, there it is, it's come up again. All right, okay, here we go.
I mean, I feel like this is one that I'm gonna have less to say on than Bounce probably, because like I said, I got my start doing like horror stories and then immediately into writing professionally for transformation games. So I've always been so embedded in the space. I've marinated in here for so long that to me it's like almost a default. Like I have to think about not making something TF. Like even when I'm writing a non-TF story, it's almost always just going to include TF by virtue of the fact that is the medium I exist in. Like even horror stories will still have like werewolves or zombies or something else that is inherently TF-y on some level.
The author's barely disguised fetish.
Exactly.
Yes, always.
But what about you, Bounce?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, recently, like the aforementioned Gundam OC shit. Like,
yes,
yeah, like okay, original's gonna be, we've got some trans new types because queerness is wildly underexplored in Gundam, but
wild.
But what if one of them, like, she actually, like, part of her new type powers is that she like physically experiences what's happening with the robot, and oh no, what if she gets stabbed through the cockpit with a beam saber and doesn't realize it until after the battle because her body's atomized and now she's just part of the robot. How did I get here? Shit, fuck. Yeah, that's been the most recent of it for me. But yeah, every single little thing I make, like, it's eventually it all comes back to having at least TF elements in it, even if it isn't the focus. Or a lot of it's kind of been exploring, like, post bodies being changed for me.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, I did want to make sure I left some time for audience questions, and I believe I have 2 here. And the first one comes to us from Bolus. And so Bolus asks, what would you say to the crowd of people that prefer unwilling TF art to convince them about the virtues of willing TF instead, or vice versa, depending on what your preferred mode is?
Me with my unwilling TF for life tattoo. I don't know. I might need a second to think about this if you have an idea off the top of your head, Bounce.
Yeah, honestly, like I still love Unwilling TF. A lot of my older work, I think, was a lot of Unwilling TF, but I've kind of just found myself shifting more towards, if not necessarily like asked for TF, but stuff that's kind of affirming or positive. And I think largely that's just, I don't know, consent is sexy. It's one thing to be, oh no, I'm turning into a wolf, as opposed to like, oh, I'm turning into a wolf. Oh, I've been thinking about this forever, and like here are all of these parts that I'm really into about it. And I think having a character or a TF subject that is like into it, I think can really add a lot of. I think it can let you explore the themes of those TFs more deeply, because I think the characters themselves are a bit more willing to engage with it.
Yeah.
I will say from the opposite perspective, I do 100% get listen, there is something really beautiful about the willing element of it, about the ability to embrace this and be able to explore it in a way where you don't have to spend so much of your page count or so much of the art focusing on how someone goes from horrified to enjoying themselves or accepting or whatever else. Like there is a great deal of space that opens up when you just go, hey, let's look at this from the perspective of someone who wants this and what that looks like. And it can still be dark or still be fucked up. And if you're into that thing where it's like, you thought you wanted this, or you wanted this, but like there's these elements you didn't think about, or like how the world reacts to this thing you want. But I will say from the editor's perspective, as an unwilling TF fan and one who maybe wants to, to explain this to people who are not into it, who just think it's too dark or too upsetting, one thing, just to jump right off with this, there is a degree to which it ties into things like non-con. And for people who are very judgmental of that and think like, oh, that's inherently awful, like there is a degree to which there are people who grew up in very sex-repressed or very sex-negative spaces who find it genuinely freeing in the context of fantasy, explicitly and exclusively in the context of fantasy, to let go of the shame of wanting to be a sexual being, of desiring things and feeling ashamed and awful because you've had it drilled into your head that is a bad thing that you cannot want and be a good person, to be like, okay, it's not in your hands anymore. It's someone else is making you do this thing that you, like a good Christian boy or girl, do not want, but it's happening anyway, and you can just kind of enjoy that without having to feel like you're a bad person for actually wanting that. And it's a similar thing with TF, where like it can be a fun, like, I've spent a lot of time somewhat recently. I'm a relatively recent convert to scrolling through Reddit as opposed to Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever for my doom scrolling. And one of the places I go to frequently is the Transformation subreddit, and there's a lot. There's a lot I don't love about that community, but like, hey, no offense at all. But there's a lot of things I see, like almost like every other week. There's a post from someone going like, "Should I be ashamed that I'm into transformation?" Or like, "How do I fix myself for being into TF? Like, am I a bad person? Am I wrong fundamentally to be into TF?" And for people like that, Unwilling TF has the exact same like thing that non-con can have for people who are sexually repressed, where it's like, no, you're good. You're not a bad person. You're not into this weird kinky thing because you're broken or fundamentally wrong or anything. You said you didn't want to be turned into a goat, but oh no, you've been turned into a goat anyway. And as much as you might not want it, now you're just gonna have to be a goat. And oh geez,
yep.
Nothing you can do but enjoy yourself now that you're a goat. And it's like
sometimes you just need a little push.
Yeah, and it can be freeing. It can be equally freeing and empowering and feel good and positive, but from the perspective of someone who cannot allow themselves to enjoy themselves in that way. And again, there's like, TF is as much a horror kink as it is a euphoria kink, and there is a whole side of TF that is literally just about, what if like the worst person you know got a karmic retribution, or if you watch a horror movie, but instead of the story ending with a person with their guts all over the floor, they end up living in a barn or in a museum or something. Like there's a whole wide range of things that people get into because they like the idea of something that is spooky. And in the same way that it's okay to be a fan of horror, it's okay to be a fan of a kink that has horror roots.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that I'll put in a word for willing, but I think you really captured, in my opinion, a lot of why people are into like unwilling stuff and some of the appeal. And I think that was, I couldn't have really put it better. I will say, as someone who probably leans more towards willing at this point, though, I will say, especially earlier in my like artistic career, I was more of like an unwilling TF person. I think one of the things that really pushed me towards really enjoying it more, and what I'd say to like convince to some degree, is like willing TF doesn't always, I think sometimes people picture willing TF in a very depressing way, in the sense of like, oh, it's just boring, like there's nothing like intentionally interesting about it. You're just getting whatever it is you want. I think there's something to be said from a really interesting perspective of, you can have a willing TF that is made under like very dire circumstances, or like in a very particular sort of situation where you are having to take like a lot of like, you're having to make a lot of sacrifices, but it's for the good of some other sort of cause. Like those kinds of willing TFs like just are really interesting to me, and I find that like when it comes to like telling stories in a creative medium, there can sometimes be even more interesting possibilities from that versus just, you get to have, the TF of your dreams. Like, look, I'd love to have just the TF of my dreams. I'd be fully willing to do it. But there's also other interesting creative situations where I could undergo a willing TF, even though it's not necessarily something I directly would have wanted to necessarily happen. It's still willing, like I'm consenting to it. It's going to happen because there's some other goal or some other element to the story. And I think that is diversity within kind of willing TF opportunities that makes it unique.
I think just a brief addition to that, I think that like an important thing that you're kind of touching on here indirectly is, I think that these terms are very broad, and so I think it's important to kind of realize also that like when we're talking about willing and unwilling, there are multiple vectors of that. There is voluntary versus voluntary, desired versus unwanted, like intended versus unintended, and those doesn't necessarily all have to be the same thing. Like you can have a TF that you want, but that was an accident and that you didn't agree to, or you can have a TF that you agreed to but you don't want, or like one that you're ambivalent on. Like these don't have to be a black and white thing of it's either X or Y. There are multiple pathways that intersect here.
Yeah. Like I think part of it too is also, just because something is willing does not mean that there's no friction or complications that come with that too. Like, great, you've been turned into the plush that you always wanted to be. Rent is due on the 1st. Like, how do you make this happen? Or
can I use my one pizza party voucher for this?
Yes. No, sorry. Tritech does not accept pizza party vouchers to pay for the renting of your company provided accommodations. Or like where it's like long term and like you have to hide the changes as it goes on. Stuff like that.
It's actually kind of an interesting thing, because before the show we talked briefly about old stories and how a lot of old TF stories have real issues that you'll find. But one thing that I do think old TF stories actually tended to do really well that you don't see quite as much of these days is because they were writing for an audience that presumably was not 100% in on TF and all the TF tropes. There was a lot of focus on the idea of like, okay, even if you wanted to turn into a woman or a horse or whatever, you then have to deal with the fact that your IDs are off, that your rent is due, that your relationship with other people is something that's going to be impacted, and kind of like exploring that from the perspective of like, we're not necessarily all on the same page here on like what this means. So let's explore the space after you've gotten what you desire, but you still need to function or figure out a way to function in a new context.
Yeah,
and I think that is something I wish would come back a little bit. It's a cool area to explore.
Absolutely. I guess. Oh, and so I had another audience question, second one, and it was a question from Other Side, and he was asking if the folks whoever it was that we'd be interviewing have ever explored transformations in which the TFE loses like particular senses, be it like eyesight, hearing, whatever, and how you work to like communicate or convey that through the art that you were making.
I mean, I have, because I'm a writer, but Bounce, do you have a...
It is a bit more difficult to convey those things in like in a visual media, unless you put text right there next to like, oh my goodness, I can't see. I mean, some of like what I was kind of talking about earlier with the robot stuff, where like your senses definitely change in a way. I mean, that's honestly something I've been struggling with. Like, how do I represent this visually, this tide of information that you suddenly have, or lack of information that you are used to? Yeah, I think you kind of... It gets tricky. Like, I think kind of POV shots are probably the closest you can get with a lot of visual art, but like if it's something like losing your ability to hear, how on earth do you represent that in...
like I said, as a writer, it's a lot easier because you are conveying internal thoughts and senses to the reader to try to understand things, and so the language of your vision going away, or your hearing, going deaf, or your eyesight altering, or your sense of smell and taste. Yeah. Like when you turn into a piece of clothing, like it's like, do you taste or do you sense? And like a big part of writing like stuff like the solo journaling games and the IODM stuff, like having to write out the transformations, what a player needs to know about how they're changing so they can play a character who is transforming. A lot of the time that involves writing about, okay, your sense of smell changes in this way, your sense of taste changes in this way. This is so you can play this character better. Here are the things that are going to fundamentally alter about the way that you engage with the world. And it's easier to do in writing. I feel like outside of like comics and stuff, or a piece that is explicitly and exclusively about that, it can be very difficult to convey in art, because art is, like, meaning absolutely no disrespect, I fucking love art, but like it is a primarily visual medium, and visuals are, they tend to focus on visuals. Like you maybe have like the difference in like texture and stuff, but you can't get into hearing or taste or whatever without drawing
a lot
face.
Of
no, absolutely. Awesome. Well, that was all the audience questions I had. I don't know if either of you had questions for me.
I guess okay, you've gotten to interview like a lot of like, I know you've gotten to interview some of the like creators of the art for like Animorphs and stuff, which I mean huge. Who do you have a dream guest who you have not yet had a chance to interview?
K Applegate.
Oh well, yeah. Fuck. There you go.
It's automatic. It's like this. It's absolutely her. I would love to talk to her. So, I mean, Animorphs, as I've said many times on this show, is like so core to like how I got into this space, and I just find the books to just be that. They're so fascinating and they're so interesting, and I really, really appreciate that they respected their audience, even though they knew that their audience was primarily children. And it's something that I feel like a lot of like children's focused media really has started to lose, especially with like, the rise of fascism. So I really appreciated how real and raw and direct they were, and how overt they were in the messaging that they were trying to get across, particularly with the ending. So talking to her, 100% my dream guest.
Very valid.
Makes a lot of sense.
So wild. As I grew up with Animorphs, but I never bring it up as like the thing that got me to TF, because for some reason I read an entire series about people transforming into animals, and it was just like, yeah, this is cool. Read a Simpsons comic where Bart Simpson turns into a cat, and it's like, wait a minute. My
Hold
brain.
This is doing things to me.
God. Do you have a second question, Bounce? Or,
sure. What's the coolest thing that's come out of like doing this?
Ooh. Okay. So I have two answers. The first is that I think getting to run panels live of this show at cons has just been such a wonderful experience. Like, I am truly very fortunate to have been able to have the opportunity to do that, to do it with both Libra and also with, like special guests and such. I think in particular about the Anthrocon panels with Angerboda and ABCD. It really feels like a genuine, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's a privilege and something I really cherish, because I love getting to talk to people and to get to like have these kinds of conversations with a live audience that gets to then feed back to the conversation. Is such a wonderful feeling. I've mentioned many times before, I used to do a lot of drama stuff, improv, etc., and it's kind of the closest thing to that for me to like get that sort of vibe for. So I really cherish it, and it's allowed me to get to do so many cool things in different cons in the States. The other answer I would give, though, is I actually got to go into VR because of this show, in the sense of one of someone who's become a good friend of mine, Cass, casually noted, actually gave me his old Quest 2 back towards earlier days in podcast recording, because I was talking about wanting to experience VR, and that was extremely cool to get to be able to go into VR because of making the show indirectly. So I would be remiss not to mention that.
Cool. Those both sound like really awesome things.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I have two questions for you. First of
Excellent.
all, what's your favorite planet?
Oh, Neptune. Easy.
Awesome. Mine's the sun. It's really big.
It's not a planet.
Yeah, I know, but it's huge, like the king of the planets. Anyway.
Shut up.
Sorry. My actual question, because I only had... Sorry, I only had one actual question, but I wanted to throw in two.
Gotcha.
My actual question is, earlier you asked Bounce about exploring different mediums, of going into like photo manipulation. Yeah. I know that you are famously, before you started this podcast, you were most known as a photo manipulation artist. You did that style of artwork. I don't know, like art, writing, all these things, they are tremendously difficult to learn. But you should still fucking try and learn them. If you look, very briefly, if you look at like the things that me or Bounce or anyone who's been on this show does, and you're like, damn, I wish I could do that, but I can't, guess I might as well put it into a prompt generator. Fuck you. Pick up a goddamn pencil. You will learn. I have dyslexia so bad, I had to go to a college, like a special college, just because I couldn't fucking read or write till I was in my fucking mid-20s, and I'm a professional writer now. You can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to. Having said that, if you could be granted like the ability to just pick up a new art form and just be instantly competent at it, just not worrying about like the time and effort or money it would take to get into it. Like if you could just an art form that you currently are not, super confident in, and could just suddenly do it because you are just like, that art form seems cool as hell and I wish I could explore it.
Yeah.
What would it be?
It's a good question. I think that, well, part of my ADHD is that I have dabbled in many great deals of types of art forms. Even if I don't do it very often, I like to think I'm a decent writer. Even though I don't do it directly, like my photo manipulation does cross the threshold into digital painting to some degree, and my inclination would be like to be able to do like line art and digital art in a way that is like very clean and crisp, because that's not something I do. But I feel like that's kind of cheating the question. So what I would actually say is something I have like zero skill basis in, but would love to be able to just like pick up like that, would be 3D modeling, like getting to do models for like VR chat and stuff. Sick. That shit is so complicated. Like a long time ago, I remember looking into like Blender and shit, and I was like, what is happening? And so I did not really spend any real amount of time trying to figure anything there out. But it is so cool what people can make in that space. And I think that increasingly, as a lot of furries and TF people spend time in virtual reality spaces, like the way in which we are then perceived in those becomes increasingly important, I guess. And so I think if I was able to just snap my fingers and be able to do that kind of a modeling whenever I wanted to, would be super cool. So I'd say that.
Awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Samesies.
Yeah.
That is pretty heckin' cool. I would personally just like to be able to do what all my cool artist friends can do, because I have ideas in my head, and I have been blessed by the fact that I have so many artist friends I can work with to do things. But there are times I'm just like, God, I wish I could just pick up I have a tablet. I've been slowly learning to draw. I wish I could just like be like, oh, here's this comic idea.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
tough.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
A shark once said that all you need to do to start drawing is just to start drawing.
That's true. Man, she sounds cool, but also like an idiot who doesn't know what she's talking about.
I will say this, though. I know I've mentioned it before on the podcast, too, but like I have dysgraphia, which is like fine motor skills issues. That's one of the reasons why I do photo manipulation in particular, because I don't necessarily need to be holding a pen, but I do have a tablet that was very generously gifted to me by Libra, and I do have started to like integrate it to some degree into my art, and I think that is cool. And so this is my way of also gently saying that maybe that's something to keep investing time in. Who knows?
And I will say, like, joking about my artistic inabilities aside, like, again, just to hammer down on that thing, like I have shaky hands. Like, I'm holding my hand up right now. I'm seeing my fingers shake. I am fundamentally not particularly good at drawing things. It's just not a skill I have. I still try, and I've gotten, like, I can't dedicate as much time as I want to it, but I still draw, and I'm happier with the things that I have made by hand than I could ever possibly be with, like, like prompt generation or any of that shit. Like, there is something so fundamentally wonderful about creation. And if there's one thing I can just end this little topic on by saying, like, I think that you are robbing yourself if you don't try to learn a skill. Like, even if you fail, the joy you will find when you stop expecting it to look good and just appreciate what you're doing and see what you're making, you're going to be so happy. You're going to be so excited by the fact that you made that thing. And that's awesome. And you should take pride in that.
100%. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much both for coming on today. I really enjoyed getting to have this chat, and I guess if folks are looking to find your stuff online, where can they find you?
Lots of places. I primarily use Fur Affinity. I'm RunRabbitBounce there. I also post on Blue Sky at Bounce Artwork. That's also my Patreon and my Tumblr. Although it's mostly only safe for work stuff on the Tumblr. And then, I've got a Ko-fi at RunRabbitBounce, and I stream every weekday morning, and like almost all day, Mondays and Fridays, on Picardo at Gobbo Bounce.
And
hell yeah,
we've mentioned it before, but you do have a couple of games that are out and or available.
Yes.
Also, support Inhuman Resources. And, it's a free game. You don't have to pay anything for it, but it'd be really cool if you did for Don't Kink Shame God, both of which can be found on my wife's itch page, which is Softy Hellhound, I believe.
Hell yes.
Amazing.
And I am Duhad absolutely everywhere. You can find me on YouTube, but don't do that. Don't look me up.
I'm looking that up right now.
No, don't. Look. Pony was a hell of a drug. Shut up. Anyway. I am most active on Fur Affinity. You can find me at Duhad on Fur Affinity, where I have hundreds of stories uploaded. And if you look at my front page, you can see all my artist friends who I've written stories for. And if you follow them through to their pages, you can read even more of my work on their pages. And check out some really cool artists, because they all rock, and you should give them time and attention. However you want to financially support me and or just pick up some free goods, I am Duhad on itch.io, where things like the solo journaling games, We Live Forever, and the IODM, Isle of Dr. Moreau expansions will all be uploaded on there eventually. Everything I put up on that page is pay what you want. I appreciate people funding me. I do run on donations primarily, but they are all free. I'm a big believer in freeware. So if you are interested in anything I've created and you're like, man, she keeps talking shit about AI. I love AI. Fuck you, but you can steal my shit for free. It's all there. Grab it.
Just don't feed it into an LLM.
Yeah, just don't feed it into an MLM.
Yeah.
I will find you. But yeah, no.
And those shark teeth are sharp.
Oh, they're so sharp. But yeah, no. Check out my writing. Check out my games. They're everything I've made. You can enjoy for free, and if you are very generous, you can support me, and I will just keep making stuff.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much both again for coming on. I had a delightful time here getting to chat with y'all. And I hope that everyone had a wonderful time listening and getting to hear about all these wonderful games. In the meantime, go Jays. I hope that you're having a wonderful week. I hope that by the time you're listening to this, the Jays have been crowned as the world champions. But in the meantime, I hope that you all have a wonderful week. Keep an open mind, stay TFy, and we'll see you back here again next week.
Bye.